We heard already that in Europe we have as a main driver our Industrial Emission Directive, which was revised in 2024 and published as 2024-1785 directive. In short words, we call it also IED 2.0. And the first time the Industrial Emission Directive was published was in 2010, so you can see we had 14 years until we got the first revision. It's a directive on industrial emissions, so Integrated Pollution Prevention and Control, IPPC. We hear different numbers. I say here IED covers around 52,000 industries. We heard now 58 plus the agriculture part. And we have specific regulations for the different industries, and they are covered in so-called best available technology reference documents. So the IED is not something which then has to focus on all the different industries. For that we have the BREF documents. For each BREF, the following information can be found. First, information on a specific industrial agricultural sector in the EU, the techniques and processes used in this sector, current emission and consumption levels, methods to consider the determination of the best available technique and emerging techniques. It also includes a list of references, so from where was coming the information, links to web pages containing relevant legislation and standards, and additional technical information. BREFs cover up to now 34 industrial sectoral activities. Some examples: production of cement, lime, magnesium oxide, large volume organic chemicals, pulp and paper, but also industries like food, drink and milk, slaughterhouses, animal byproducts. The most regulated ones are the large combustion plant. This was last revised and last published in July 2017. And waste incineration. This was published in December 2019. I say the most regulated ones, these are the ones where we have the most pollutants to be measured. And we have mainly the strictest emission limit values. Who are the stakeholders which are involved in such a BREF elaboration? At first, and that's the starting point, is our European Commission. And there we have different departments like the Director General for Environment, so DG ENVEA. We have the European Bureau of Research in Industrial Transformation and Emissions, so it's now called UE Pride. So that's part of the Joint Research Center. We have different member states who are involved. We have industry federations, environmental NGOs, trade unions and workers, representatives, and all this is related in a technical working group. I'm also a member of one technical working group for a new BREF which is related to landfill. So it's very important to include all the different stakeholders and specifics the industry. So it's nothing which is coming only from the head down to the industry. And that's a process. The initiation is coming from the European Commission, as I said. Then there's establishment of the technical working group, so you have to apply for by different stakeholders who could be member of the working group. Then is starting a data collection for that, for the specific industries. There is sent out a questionnaire. What kind of process you have, what kind of flue gas technology you have, what are the emission limits or emission levels you reach with that. So, and this is collected from the specific industries, from all, let's say, operators of waste incinerators, cement kilns, and so on, depending on which BREF we are talking about. After the collection of this data, there's generated a first draft done with potential meetings of the technical working group. After that, the draft is published. Then there is a possibility for commenting. And then after the commenting, there's defined, let's say, the final draft or the final paper, and the BUD conclusions will be published, and they are getting legal binding. This is coming from the European Union, and then the countries, the member countries, have to transform this in a period of 4 years to domestic law. And after that is coming a continuous review. So normally such a BREF should be revised every 8 years. I have to say the reality is also not like this. We have BREF documents which are 20 years old. So that's really, let's say, a wish, but it's not reality. We also have to say that the process of starting a PREF until the final publication takes around 4 years. Then we have 4 years implementation to domestic law, so we would need to start immediately. So really 8 years, it's not possible to realize, but it's written like this. If I talk to IED 2.0, we have new sectors, what mentioned already also, so there's landfill, electrolyzer, battery production, and what is a really concern, and also for, let's say, CEMS manufacturers, for the standardization groups, is that in the future we have so-called BAT-REL, annual emission levels. This is what is coming out from the questionnaires. So, and for example, for dust in the waste incineration, there's an annual emission level for dust between 2 and 5 milligram per cubic meter. Up to now, the definition was then by the authorities to take the 5 milligram. In future, they have to go to the 2 milligram. And this generate concerns and in standardization work for the plants itself to get that, but also for CEMS suppliers like us. We need new certified ranges. If we go now to India, so we heard already about it, you have your Ministry of Environment who's, let's say, giving the environmental impact assessment. They are the policy makers and they give the Gazette notifications. And below that is the Central Pollution Control Board, which is a statutory organization. And they issue the guidelines and they supervise then the state pollution control boards, who are responsible to take care for the CEMS and for the values directly with the operator. So it's a top-down organization. As I understand it, there is no involvement of industry. Sure, there is collected, but it's not in the way like we do it in Europe, that we really have a technical working group with different kind of members to work together on such paper, including the public, like NGOs and so on. So the way is different. Also here, only to show what is the starting point was in 1981, and then in 2014, we also heard this already, was the instruction to state pollution control boards to define these 17 high polluting categories, including hazardous waste incineration. And so I can go over that. In 2017 was then published the guideline for continuous emission monitoring, and that was the part where was listed in which industry should be monitored what. So at first it's a guideline how CEMS could operate and so on, but also here was mentioned which pollutants should be measured. So we see, for example, for cement, it's PM, NOx, and SOx. And in table 7, then there are listed the emission limits. And this was done in 2018 in the revision of this guideline. If we look on another sector, municipal waste incineration, it was not covered by these guidelines. So for municipal waste incineration, we have the solid waste management rules here in India, and this was published in 2016. And there was mentioned that waste with calorific value of more than 1,500 kilocalories per kilogram should be not landfilled anymore. It should be incinerated, because if you incinerate, you can use this energy to produce, to generate electricity, or what we use a lot in Europe, to produce steam and to heat houses with that. So, and this was defined here with the solid waste management rules in 2016. And if we look on emission limit values, as I said, in Europe, the waste incineration sector is the most regulated sector. We have the most pollutants to measure. So we have these different values. And in the first column, I showed the emission limit values which were before the revision of the waste incineration PREF. Then we have the BAT-RELs, and each number which is red shows that the emission level or the limit value was reduced. And this is even if we take the upper value. In future, we have to take the lower value, which make it more complex. If we compare that to the notification in India, we see different values, but the main difference is that there's always mentioned a sampling period half hour and we have in Europe daily emission limit values and also yearly. So we cannot really compare it because half our emission values are always higher than daily emission limit values. So, but I wanted to show you where are the main differences here. Nevertheless, we have now also published in August last year the draft of new guidelines for waste to energy plants. The draft refers once again to the solid waste management rules and emphasize advanced emission control systems. There is an obligation now for the installation of online continuous emission monitoring systems, so-called here CEMS, and emission standards for pollutants such as PM, NOx, SOx, CO, HCl, dioxin, furans, and heavy metal are written there. The draft does not publish table of new ELVs, but I expect that will come now in the revised solid waste management rule, which should be published in this year. So we see that it's really an ongoing process like we have also in Europe with our processes. If we come to certifications, I can go shortly over that because it was mentioned. We have our system in Europe with the 14181 and the qualifications levels like Qual 1, 2,